Welcome back to the International Wealth Builders Radio Talk Show. I am your host, Michelle Estelle, the home buyer coach on KCAA Broadcasting Network, 1050 AM and 106.5 FM. We are affiliated with CNBC, NBC News, and NBC Sports, where we cover 5 million households in the greater Los Angeles area. If you missed any of our previous shows, you can watch on our TV streaming channel distribution on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Android app. All you have to do is subscribe to the Building Solid Foundations channel. I'm so glad that you're back for this third segment on the most common questions that I get asked in my profession as a home buyer coach and a mortgage professional. And in this segment, we are going to talk about home prices. What is going to happen to home prices? The most common thing that I hear from any of my clients or when I'm just out and about is I'm waiting for house prices to go down. House prices are still too high. When are they going to go down? Well, the thing is that this is also a very relative thing because people need to be selling their houses and then they need to have a need to sell their house, and they have to have buyers who want to buy it. And when they have few buyers who want to buy it and they really have a need, that might be a reason for them to reduce the price to sell. But what I'm more interested in is the fact that people have homes that have a lot of equity. They have potentially refied in the last couple years to have a low interest rate. So they have a low housing payment and low shelter payment at this time. And if they sell, where are they going to go to better their situation? That is the question, because if they sell now high, they will have the equity and they could put a down payment. But even on their next purchase with a large down payment, their mortgage payment could be more. So are they bettering themselves? Even if you move out of state right now, prices are pretty high all around. And the main reason is economics 101, supply and demand. We have a housing shortage in the nation. I've heard that it's estimated to be a shortage of about 4 million homes in relationship to buyers. And anytime that you have a supply and demand issue, you are going to have an increased price. If people want something that is scarce, they're going to be willing to pay more. And if sellers know that they have something that is desirable, they can charge more. Now, we know that right now, maybe the affordability makes it that there's less people that are going to want to buy, but there also then will be less people that want to sell. Because what I said before, where are they going to go to be in a better position? So then that makes it where the people who need to sell are going to have to bargain with the current market. They are going to have to reduce the price that is going to work for the buyers in the market. And therefore, you might see some prices coming down. But what I've also noticed is if I look up home price on Zillow and I see that the value was different than it might have been a handful of months ago, what I'm actually seeing, I think, is that we continue to see Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com projecting what you could get for your house based on the activity that's happening in the market. So if your neighbor just sold their home, for 700,000, 800,000, and then they would make your house worth 850,000 because the last person that sold was 650, the next person that sold 758. So they gave you a projected trajectory of what your home price might be if you sold it, but it still depends on what somebody's willing to pay. So when you look at the shift in the market with the higher interest rates, we didn't necessarily have less of a demand. We just had a cooling off for that demand. We still have less homes than are needed, but rather than having 30 buyers for every home, maybe we have 5 buyers for every home. That's still not enough to make it where the prices need to significantly drop in order for people to sell if they want to sell. So that's one thing, is that I don't see that home prices are going to take a deep dive. We have none of the circumstances that we had in 2008 for a market crash. So when people say that, or they're thinking everybody's going to go into foreclosure, we don't have any of those indicators. We have quite the opposite type of market that we had in 2008. First of all, we had really poor financing. Some people who really were in a hardship to be able to pay the financing that they got to purchase their home. And for a while, these types of the borrowers and the types of loans that they had, they could keep refinancing. They had a bailout mechanism. Equity was increasing, prices were increasing quite rapidly, and they could just keep refinancing. They could even take cash out. They could sell at a profit and buy something else. They could buy multiple homes. Before that meltdown, there was lots of ways that people could continue, even if they couldn't make their payment, to hold on to that home. But at some point, when that financing went away, that type of financing went away, there was no more bailout mechanism for that borrower to continue to change their financing in order to hold on to their house. So they had to lose their home. And this was a huge impact across everything, every market, every type of job, where people were then, not that they couldn't afford their home at one point, but the loss of employment uh, made them at risk to lose their home. And this is where we had prices just completely drop. Now, some people were able to sell their home and buy another home at a lower price and a decent interest rate. So they still were able to maintain home ownership, but they eventually lost a property or more than one property. Some people lost several properties. Um, I would venture to say that some of the people who maybe didn't have to sell but did may look back and think that their home that they sold for maybe 400,000 might be worth $1 million today. So again, in that 10 years or more, people who were able to hold on to their home during that market are definitely on the upside right now. Even if they refinanced, a couple times, they still potentially have a good position with a low interest rate and equity. So there's proof even in the worst market that 10 years or 15 years later that people had a huge advantage. Now, most of that advantage was very recent. They didn't just get all the equity in the 15 years. They got most of the equity in the last 3 years, but they still were on the upside after the 10-year mark, I would say, or at least getting there, depending on the city, state, county that they lived, because every market geographically can be different as well. But we don't have that situation. So if you have a lot of equity and a low interest rate and a low mortgage payment, you are going to do everything you can to hold on to that home. And so the only concern that I have is employment. And if people have viable income and stable employment, and they have a low interest rate and equity, they're not giving up their home, even if it loses some of that value. Even if somebody's home is on the upside 800,000 and it goes to 500,000, which is 300,000 lost in equity, they still are in a great position. So my friends who are on the sidelines saying that they're waiting for the opportunity for a crash might be waiting for a really long time, because I myself, my personal opinion, I don't see any indicators that would make this that situation. Now, when millions of people own homes and everybody has a different situation, and maybe there's illness or employment situations or divorce or life-changing things that occur, homes can be at risk. So there's always going to be something there. But if that happens in a market where they still can get a high price, there's no reason for that home to be thrown away at a low price. It's still going to be they're going to want to make a profit, and they still potentially can. So they're not going to sell their home for less if they don't have to. And the biggest indication that I see is most people who don't have to sell their home won't. So that's not going to give all of the rest of the people waiting on the sidelines to take advantage of that opportunity. There might not be that many opportunities. Now, again, my opinion, but I do not see this huge cycle. I could be wrong. And I think employment is going to be the biggest key, because even if rates are high and affordability is low, there's enough people who have a low housing payment right now, and they will keep their home, because to lose it means that they have potentially a higher shelter budget outside. Rent is hard and rent is high. Finding rentals is difficult right now. So the people who have a home are going to keep it. And like I said in my first segment, that still is a great reason to buy, because once you have that home, you could be like any of these other homeowners who maybe bought at a high interest rate, took advantage 10, 15 years later of a low interest rate, and have a great housing payment and have equity in their home. And that would be the key. That's a long-term investment in real estate, most likely where you will end up if you held onto your home for a while. So again, thank you for joining us in this segment. And in the next segment, we are going to kind of wrap this up a little bit with some of the other questions that I get asked, or final thoughts about what's going to happen in the market, and what we're going to do in our next show. So we are going to review that. And I just wanted to remind you that if you missed any of our previous shows, you can watch us on our TV streaming channel distribution on Roku TV, Amazon Fire, the Android app. And all you have to do is just subscribe to the Building Solid Foundations channel, and you can catch any of our previous shows. So up next, we're going to summarize this show today, going over house prices, interest rate, and when is a good time to buy. And I hope you come back for our final segment.